The neon sign flickered weakly above the gas station, casting an eerie glow over the cracked asphalt. It was past midnight, and the world felt eerily still, just the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant rumble of a semi-truck miles away. Inside, 23-year-old Mia Torres leaned against the counter, her tired eyes scanning the empty lot through the streaked glass windows. She had been on her feet for 12 hours straight, her sneakers worn thin from pacing back and forth across the sticky floor. Her uniform, a faded polo shirt with the company logo stretched awkwardly across her chest, was damp with sweat despite the biting chill seeping in through the cracks in the walls. Mia wasn't just working another shift. She was surviving. Her father's medical bills were piling up faster than she could pay them off, each envelope marked urgent, feeling like a noose tightening around her neck. Every dollar counted, every tip mattered, and every mistake meant one more sleepless night worrying about eviction notices or electricity cutoffs. But tonight, as she stared out into the darkness, something stirred in the air, a sense that this ordinary, grueling night would be anything but. Then came the sound of tires crunching over gravel. A beat-up sedan pulled into the station, its headlights dim and flickering like fireflies. The driver stepped out slowly, his shoulders hunched under the weight of exhaustion. He looked older than he probably was, his face lined with worry, his clothes rumpled and stained. Mia watched him approach the counter, his steps heavy, deliberate. Something about him screamed desperation, but it wasn't until he spoke that her heart sank. "I need to fill up," he said hoarsely, sliding a crumpled $20 bill onto the counter. His hands trembled slightly as he added, "And maybe, do you sell snacks? My daughter hasn't eaten since yesterday." Mia froze. The man's voice carried a raw vulnerability that hit too close to home. She glanced at the $20 bill, then back at him. There was no way that amount would cover both gas and food, not even close. And yet, here he was, standing before her, clinging to what little dignity he had left. For a moment, silence hung between them, thick and suffocating. Then Mia made a decision that would change everything. Mia's fingers hovered over the cash register, trembling not from fear, but from the weight of the choice she was about to make. "Sir," she began softly, her voice barely audible over the buzz of the vending machines behind her, "this isn't enough." She gestured towards the crumpled bill lying limply on the counter, her heart pounding in her chest like a drum roll, leading to an inevitable crescendo. The man's eyes widened, panic setting in as he fumbled in his pockets, searching desperately for any spare change. "Please," he pleaded, his voice cracking under the strain of despair, "I can pay you back tomorrow. I promise." Each word was a desperate attempt to bridge the gap between his dire situation and her rigid instructions. Mia swallowed hard, her gaze locking onto his weary eyes. She saw herself reflected in them, another soul beaten down by life's relentless challenges. With a deep breath, she slid the 20 back across the counter towards him. "Take it," she whispered, her voice firm despite the storm raging inside her. "Fill your tank, get some snacks for your daughter. This one's on me." The man stared at her, disbelief etched across his face. "Why are you doing this?" he asked, his voice laced with gratitude and confusion. "Because," Mia replied, her own eyes glistening with unshed tears, "we've all been there. Just take care of your family." Her words hung in the air, heavy with the shared understanding of struggle and survival. As the man nodded, clutching the bill tightly, Mia turned away, her heart swelling with a mix of dread and hope. She knew the risks, knew that bending the rules could cost her dearly, but in that moment, compassion outweighed caution. As he filled his car and disappeared into the night, Mia couldn't shake the feeling that she had just altered the course of her fate, perhaps irreversibly. The next morning, the sun rose cruelly bright, casting harsh light through the grimy windows of the gas station. Mia arrived early, her stomach churning with anxiety as she replayed the previous night's events in her mind. She hadn't slept much, tossing and turning as she braced herself for whatever consequences might come her way. When the manager, Mr. Grayson, walked in precisely at 7 a.m., his usual scowl already etched into his face, Mia felt her pulse quicken. "Morning," she muttered, trying to sound casual as she busied herself organizing receipts behind the counter. Mr. Grayson didn't respond. Instead, He dropped a folder onto the counter with a thud, his sharp eyes boring into hers. Inside were security camera screenshots, grainy images of the man from last night filling up his car, the timestamp glaring beneath each frame. Mia's throat tightened. "You know why I'm here," Mr. Grayson growled, his voice low, but cutting like a blade. "Company policy is clear. No exceptions. No free rides." He jabbed a finger at the photos. "You let him skip payment. $20 doesn't sound like much, but it's theft. Plain and simple." "It wasn't theft," Mia shot back, her voice rising despite her best efforts to stay calm. "He needed help. His daughter hadn't eaten in days. He told me so himself. What was I supposed to do? Turn him away?" Mr. Grayson's face darkened. "That's not your call to make. You work here to follow rules, not play hero. Do you have any idea how many times people try to pull stunts like this? If we start making exceptions, where does it end?" Mia clenched her fists, anger bubbling beneath her skin. "So what? We just let people starve because it's policy? Is that really who we are? This isn't about morals. It's about business," he snapped. "And if you can't handle following basic instructions, then maybe you don't belong here." The words hit her like a punch to the gut. For a moment, she considered arguing further, pleading her case, but the look in his eyes told her it wouldn't matter. This wasn't about fairness or humanity. It was about control. About power. "Fine," she said finally, her voice shaking with a mix of fury and resignation. "If that's how it has to be." "It does," he interrupted coldly. "Effective immediately. You're terminated. Clean out your locker and leave your uniform on the counter before you go." As Mia stood frozen, staring at the man who had just stripped her of her livelihood, the reality of her situation crashed over her like a tidal wave. Rent was due in 2 weeks. Her father's medication refill was looming. How was she supposed to survive now? But before she could process it all, Mr. Grayson turned on his heel and walked away, leaving her alone in the suffocating silence of the gas station. Her hands trembled as she reached for her phone, scrolling through contacts in search of someone, anyone, who might offer a lifeline. But the names blurred together, each one carrying its own weight of disappointment. Friends were struggling too. Family was miles away. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she blinked them back fiercely. Crying wouldn't fix this. Nothing would. For the first time in years, Mia felt truly powerless. Just as despair threatened to swallow Mia whole, the quiet hum of engines broke the stillness outside. Startled, she glanced toward the large window, her heart skipping a beat as 5 gleaming Rolls-Royces glided into the gas station lot. Their polished exteriors caught the sunlight, reflecting dazzling beams that seemed almost otherworldly against the drab backdrop of the station. Each car exuded luxury and power, their presence incongruous with the modest surroundings. The sight was surreal, pulling Mia momentarily out of her spiraling thoughts. The doors opened in unison, revealing impeccably dressed men and women stepping out with an air of authority and elegance. They moved with purpose, their eyes scanning the area until they locked on a Mia standing inside, visibly shaken. One man, taller than the rest, led the group with a commanding stride. His suit was tailored to perfection, and his piercing gaze held a mixture of curiosity and determination. Mia's breath hitched as the group approached the entrance. The bell above the door jingled softly as they entered, the atmosphere in the small station shifting palpably. The leader extended a hand towards Mia, his expression softening slightly. "Miss Torres," he began, his voice smooth yet resonant, "we've heard about your kindness. May we speak?" Stunned, Mia nodded, her earlier turmoil momentarily forgotten in the wake of this unexpected encounter. She gestured towards the seating area, her mind racing with questions. Who were these people? How did they know her name? As they settled into the chairs, the leader introduced himself as Mr. Langston, a philanthropist known for his discreet yet impactful charitable endeavors. "We understand you recently faced a significant personal loss due to an act of generosity," Mr. Langston continued, his tone respectful and earnest. "We believe such acts should be rewarded, not punished." He paused, allowing his words to sink in before continuing. "Our organization seeks to support individuals like yourself, who embody the spirit of altruism despite personal risk. Mia listened intently, her initial shock giving way to cautious hope. Could this be real? Was there truly a chance for redemption and support after everything that had happened? As Mr. Langston elaborated on potential opportunities and assistance, Mia felt a flicker of something she hadn't felt in days: hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, her story was far from over. As the days unfolded, Mia found herself swept into a whirlwind of transformation, each moment charged with a surreal energy that defied her wildest dreams. Mr. Langston and his team wasted no time in orchestrating a series of life-altering changes. Within a week, Mia was relocated to a cozy apartment in the city, courtesy of the Foundation's housing program. The space was modest but warm, with sunlight streaming through large windows and fresh paint scenting the air, a stark contrast to the cramped, dingy room she had called home for years. But it wasn't just the physical comforts that stunned her. The Foundation also arranged for her father's medical bills to be fully covered, lifting the crushing burden that had haunted her for so long. For the first time in years, Mia could breathe without the constant weight of financial dread pressing down on her chest. Her father, frail but smiling, hugged her tightly when she broke the news, tears streaming down his weathered face. "You deserve this, Mija," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "You've always deserved better." The surprises didn't stop there. The Foundation offered Mia a position within their outreach program, where she would work directly with communities facing hardship. It was a role tailor-made for her compassionate nature, combining her knack for problem-solving with her innate desire to help others. On her first day, she walked into the sleek office building, a far cry from the gas station, and was greeted by a team of kind, driven individuals who welcomed her with open arms. For the first time, she felt valued not just for her labor, but for who she was. Yet, as her new life unfolded, Mia couldn't escape the shadow of her past. The memory of Mr. Grayson's cold dismissal lingered like a scar, a reminder of how quickly systems designed to protect profits could crush human dignity. One evening, as she sat in her new apartment scrolling through social media, she stumbled upon a post from a former coworker. It was a rant about how the gas station chain had implemented stricter policies, punishing employees even more harshly for minor infractions. The comment section was flooded with stories of workers being fired for similarly compassionate acts, giving discounts to elderly customers, letting a single mother use the restroom without buying anything, or covering a shift for a sick colleague without prior approval. Mia's blood boiled as she read through the thread. Each story was a mirror of her own, a testament to how deeply ingrained greed and indifference had become in corporate culture. She realized then that her firing wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a larger pattern, a system that prioritized profit margins over people. Her hands trembled as she closed the app, her mind racing. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about everyone who had been silenced, dismissed, or discarded because they dared to show kindness in a world that often punished it. That night, Mia couldn't sleep. She paced her apartment, her thoughts consumed by a burning question. What could she do to fight back? To expose the truth? To ensure no one else had to endure what she had? By morning, a plan began to take shape. One that would not only reclaim her voice, but amplify the voices of countless others. Mia's resolve hardened overnight, fueled by a potent mix of anger and purpose. The next morning, she sat at her kitchen table with her laptop open, her fingers poised over the keyboard. She started typing furiously, pouring every ounce of frustration and injustice into a detailed account of her experience at the gas station. But this wasn't just her story, it was a call to action. She titled the post, "When kindness costs you everything. Why corporate greed must be stopped." In vivid detail, she recounted the night she helped the stranded father, the cold indifference of her manager, and the devastating aftermath of losing her job. She included screenshots of the social media thread she discovered, weaving together the stories of other workers who had suffered similar fates. Her words were raw and unflinching, capturing the emotional toll of living under oppressive corporate policies. "They don't see us as people," she wrote. "They see us as cogs in a machine, replaceable and expendable. But we are more than that. We are human beings with hearts, and our humanity should never be penalized." Before hitting publish, Mia hesitated. She knew the risks. Exposing herself publicly could invite retaliation from the company or backlash from skeptics. But she also knew silence was complicity. Taking a deep breath, she clicked the button and watched as her post went live. Almost instantly, notifications began flooding in. Comments poured in from strangers sharing their own experiences, thanking her for speaking out, and vowing to stand with her. Her phone buzzed nonstop with messages of support, and soon, hashtags like #KindnessNotProfit and #StandWithMia began trending online. The momentum grew exponentially. Journalists picked up her story, amplifying her message to a national audience. News outlets ran segments featuring interviews with former gas station employees, exposing the systemic issues plaguing the industry. Consumer advocacy groups rallied behind her, launching petitions demanding accountability and reform. Even celebrities joined the conversation, using their platforms to amplify her cause. Overnight, Mia became the face of a movement, a symbol of resistance against corporate exploitation. But it wasn't just about raising awareness. Mia took concrete steps to hold the company accountable. With the help of lawyers provided by Mr. Langston's foundation, she filed a formal complaint with labor authorities, detailing the illegal practices she had witnessed. She also collaborated with advocacy organizations to draft legislation aimed at protecting workers' rights to act compassionately without fear of retribution. Her testimony before lawmakers was powerful, her voice steady despite the cameras trained on her. No one should have to choose between doing what's right and keeping their job, she declared, her words echoing through the chamber. As the campaign gained traction, the gas station chain found itself under intense scrutiny. Customers boycotted en masse, posting videos of themselves canceling loyalty cards and switching to competitors. Shareholders demanded answers, and executives scrambled to issue public apologies while attempting to distance themselves from the controversy. Yet Mia refused to let them off the hook. She organized protests outside their headquarters, rallying supporters to demand real change rather than hollow promises. Through it all, Mia remained steadfast, her transformation complete. The timid girl who once feared speaking up had become a fearless advocate for justice, her journey inspiring countless others to join the fight. And though the road ahead was long, she knew she had already won something invaluable: her voice, her dignity, and the unwavering belief that kindness, when met with courage, could spark revolutions. As the dust settled from the whirlwind of activism and reform, Mia found herself standing on the precipice of a new chapter, her life irrevocably transformed. The gas station chain, battered by public outrage and legal pressures, was forced to overhaul its policies, implementing measures to protect employees who acted out of compassion. It was a victory not just for Mia, but for every worker who had ever been silenced by fear. Yet, as she reflected on the journey that brought her here, it wasn't the accolades or the headlines that filled her with pride. It was the profound realization of her own strength. Mia had started as a young woman, simply trying to survive, weighed down by circumstances beyond her control. But through one selfless act, she had uncovered a reservoir of resilience she never knew she possessed. That night at the gas station wasn't just a moment of kindness. It was the catalyst for a metamorphosis. She had faced humiliation, loss, and uncertainty, yet emerged stronger, wiser, and unapologetically herself. The scars of her past no longer defined her. They empowered her. Her father, watching her from the sidelines, marveled at the woman she had become. "You've always had this fire in you, Mija," he told her one evening as they sat together on the balcony of her new apartment. "It just took the world knocking you down to make you realize it." Mia smiled, knowing he was right. She had learned that adversity wasn't something to fear. It was something to rise above. And in rising, she had discovered a purpose greater than herself. Today, Mia continues to lead with empathy and conviction, her work at the foundation giving her a platform to uplift others. She mentors young activists, sharing her story to remind them that even the smallest acts of courage can ripple outward, creating waves of change. Her journey serves as a testament to the power of humanity in the face of dehumanization, a reminder that when we dare to stand up for what's right, we not only reclaim our own dignity, but inspire others to do the same. In the end, Mia's story isn't just about survival, it's about triumph.